Hi there. My name is Joe Remillard. I'm a professor of painting and drawing at Kennesaw State. And I've been asked by the Zuckerman Museum to briefly talk about my art, as well as the two paintings of mine, which are part of the faculty exhibition currently on display at the Zuckerman. We are in my studio. Behind me is the painting that I'm currently working on. It depicts an older couple along the banks of the El Sable River. The El Sable River is one of the main rivers in the Adirondacks, which are the mountains in upstate New York. I know that area well because the dairy farm that I grew up on is along the banks of this very river. I am very inspired by the people and places of the Adirondacks. I will have a solo exhibition of my Adirondack paintings this summer at the museum at SUNY Plattsburgh, assuming COVID cooperates. So let's go ahead right now and I'll share the screen with you and show you the paintings of mine that are in the Zuckerman. And I'll talk to you a little bit about them. So let's see. Go ahead and close this out. There. The first painting is entitled Home. It depicts my husband relaxing on our sun porch in Atlanta on a weekend morning. He's a journalist with a very stress-filled job. It seems that his cell phone is constantly ringing. The only time he can truly get away from it all is when our two dogs, Music and Hank, steal his attention. So here you see them doing just that. His cell phone has been set aside. And of course, with the 2 cups of coffee, it's clear that I'm joining in on appreciating the moment. The other piece in the show by me is entitled Day's End. It depicts my brother Tom in late spring, checking the calf barn on the family farm one last time at the end of his 12-hour day. There's an epic beauty at that time of day as the setting sun rakes across the barns. Tom and my brother Tim and their sons operate the farm. They are some of the hardest working people I know. They take great pride in the farm and what they have built it into, which is now a farm of over 900 dairy cows. There is something quietly epic about their lives, which I wanted to show in this painting. We all have interesting life stories and share them in different ways with different people. I share my story through my paintings. My story is one of growing up on this dairy farm with 13 brothers and sisters. We are all extremely close and very happy that our 90-year-old mother is very healthy. Our annual family reunions on the farm exceed 150 people, and that's family members only. My husband, Steve, and I attend every year, as do my 2 adult children and my ex-wife. We are truly a bonus family. Why am I sharing all of this with you? Because this is what I paint. I paint the people and places in my life that are important to me, and by doing so, I tell my story. I thought you might be interested in seeing a companion painting to Day's End. It's a portrait of my brother Tom. Because he's just finished working with fertilizer, he's in the process of sanitizing his hands. To me, this act takes on an almost sacred quality. Next to him is one of the many white cats that live on the farm that he religiously feeds daily. Behind his burly exterior is a very, very kind soul. I am strongly influenced by the works of Andrew Wyeth and the Swedish artist Carl Larsson. They both spent virtually their entire careers painting the people and places that were important to them. There's an intimacy and honesty to their work that I hope comes through in mine. If you'd like to see more of my work, you can follow me on Instagram at Joe Remillard, or you can check out my website at joeremillard.com. Thanks so much for listening and hope to meet you soon.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Haffner. I'm in my studio, talking to you guys a little bit about my work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples of a recent exhibition that I had, and this exhibition is primarily photography. Actually, it's all photography. But if you look at my work through my website, matthaffner.com, you can easily see that I do drawing, I do painting, I've done graffiti work, murals, large-scale installations. I do a wide variety of stuff. I'm professor of video and photography at Kennesaw State University, and without further ado, I'm going to share this exhibition and images with you. And some of these images are what's featured in the Zuckerman's exhibition right now. So, of course, this is me. The exhibition that I had was entitled Harmonic Dysfunction. Some of this will become a little bit more clear as we go. This is the statement that accompanied the exhibition, and of course I'm not going to read this to you because I don't think there's really an appropriate amount of time for this, and people can read these things on their own, so you can always just go back in the video and look at this and read this if you like. But essentially what was at the core of this exhibition is really that it was photography, but really photography as installation and as thinking within like color theory and how like images and colors would resonate with one another. So this is one of the main walls in the exhibition. And this wall, had 45-inch wide photographs on it, 4 of these, and they're really meant to be in dialogue with each other. You've got kind of this abandoned nightclub, this nightclub called Mama's on the left-hand side, and kind of the rear entrance to that. This kind of workers' comp office, the front of a liquor store, and also this kind of hallway. And between these, there's there's resonance between each images, and juxtapositionings, from one thing to the next. So you've got greens and oranges and yellows all kind of working harmoniously together. You also have visual elements like neon signs and fluorescent lights, and just kind of radiating bits of color. Here's some examples. These are some of the images from that thing if you want some up close kind of details of that stuff. And moving on, I included these images that are, really gallery views so that you could see as best like what I was trying to do. In the center of this wall is this large, really massive photograph. It's about 5 feet high in total. And these other things. And this series was really kind of looking, where color is stripped away, but like I'm looking at the street, I'm looking at these little moments where I've always kind of been in love with like accidental art, and I, kind of walking the streets and thinking about this exhibition and looking down and seeing these moments. This wall has a lot of death and decay and disruption, but also, back to that, accidental art, I loved how like, in some of these images that are featured in here, how, this crushed, decomposed bird is next to this, gas grate and this line, and how it becomes like a really wonderful kind of composition. I think like if I was a painter, like this is the kind of painting that I would really want to make. This was another one, this flattened rat and this, cast iron sewer grate and the light going inside of that, and that word India, were all just like these beautiful kind of compositional elements. And I just got really kind of excited about that. This is another one from that that was featured on that same wall. Here, this is another wall within that exhibition, and these photographs are also very large with a kind of average sized photograph in the middle. And really, I mean, this is, in its simplicity, it's all about orange, but in its complexity, it's about being on the street and noticing when these sudden moments come together. That idea of like chance favors the prepared mind. Those that are ready, like things will happen, for them in quicker succession. And this, like, thinking just about like these feet and these cones and this, orange cone and flag and this movement from one photograph to the next is really what I was looking for. And I will say, like, every exhibition that I do, everything that I do in my studio, it's all kind of an experiment. I approach it very much in like a almost like scientific kind of way of thinking. Is like, it's an experiment. Everything I'm trying, whether it's a drawing, whether it's a painting, whether it's a photograph, a series of photographs, it's all just kind of experimental, and some are successful and some, aren't. And the ones that aren't, don't make it to the exhibitions. The ones that I feel like are successful do make it to the exhibitions. So throughout the exhibition, there's constantly like little bits and things that are subtle, like, little bits of green that pick up from one photograph and are seen in another photograph. Even here, where it's like viewed from one wall through a doorway to another wall. Like, these are very intentional moments in the artwork that I was trying to make for this exhibition. Abstraction featured a bit in this exhibition, and that to me was really kind of exciting, because I think photography, is often thought of as being such an incredibly literal medium, and having something that's not so literal was, interesting, and kind of harkens back to some of ideas from like the history of photography and things like that. This wall was a really exciting wall for me. I really wanted to, and you'll notice that in the exhibition, all of the walls are painted black. And having black walls, I really wanted the walls to become like nothing, just like a void, as much as was possible. Because, typically I do photography that's more black and white, and this was all about color, and I wanted this resonance in color. So I wanted this like slice of color just throughout the entire wall. And I was using diptychs and triptychs, multiple image photographs that kind of come together to make a single piece. And, this one like has this transition from green on the left, and it slowly kind of transitions to more like reds and oranges on the right. Which was just another visual kind of game and experiment that I was really kind of looking at. Here's some of the examples of the photographs that are from that series. I was really kind of intrigued with idea of like Russian, or not Russian, like Soviet montage theory, and ideas that you place two images that have nothing to do with each other next to each other, and there's a new thing that is born between those things. It's like a visual gestalt, right? There is this moment that happens between the two that you begin to, we all do this. We all kind of look for like, what does it mean that these two images are next to each other? And we begin to make new dialogues, new storytelling, new like visual imagery within our minds. And I love that idea. So using these kind of abstractions, using these ideas, but also thinking about the other images that I showed, like discordance in temperature, or in frequency of light, and how, complementary colors sort of battle, but also work nicely together, are all things that I'm thinking about. But underneath it all, there's also themes about the city, about kind of like old liquor stores and hourly motels and prostitutes and pimps and bail bonds places, just kind of all these things. So there's all these like little visual games and things that are kind of put in here, and little puns, and it's a very tongue-in-cheek kind of exhibition. It's dark, but it's also kind of funny, and I was really very excited about that kind of way of working. So anyway, if you'd like to see more of my work, you can view it at matthaffner.com. And that is the end of my presentation. So if you have anything, you know, I would love to send me an email, send me, you know, anything else you would like, and I'm happy to talk to you guys more about this thing later. So without anything else, thank you very much for watching, and see you guys around.
My name is Joe Karg, and I am an assistant. Yes, I am an assistant professor at the School of Art and Design at KSU in the illustration and sequential art department, or departments. And I've contributed 4 pieces to the faculty show this year or this semester. And yeah, this is just, I'm going to talk a little bit about them. So outside of the school, outside of my teaching responsibilities, I have a couple different practices that I operate within as a freelance illustrator, some of which I do alone, some of which, many of which are collaborative in some way, shape, or form. So I have a webcomic project that I work on with a comedian named Monty Litwack and another cartoonist, animator, illustrator, Joshua Gossett. I do some illustration work by myself, mostly for the comedy community. I'll do some comedy posters and album covers, merchandising, things along those lines. And then a vast majority of the business outside of school that I do now is with my illustration partner, Christopher Bivens. We are a 2-man team that we've done design for video games, design for comic books, illustrations for graphic novel projects, online marketing, animation projects. And so the 4 pieces that I've included in the faculty show are done with Chris Bivens. And I chose them because they were 4 pieces that I was very proud of that didn't really get a lot of attention when they came out because of kind of the nature of who they were for, what they were for. So something that I pride myself on in my own practice is that while I do a lot of illustration work for big clients like Marvel or Netflix or somebody along those lines, I also like to do smaller projects for friends of mine who are either comedians or young illustrators or even previous students of mine who are trying to kind of collaborate, or they need to hire somebody with the level of skill that I have, but they don't have a big budget. And so 2 of the 4 pieces that I did was for a comedian named Mandel. Mandel is a great comic here in Atlanta who started performing a couple of years after I was not really involved in the comedy scene anymore, but was making big waves. And he got booked to go perform at a conference called NACA, which there's a number of NACA conferences, but this is like a big deal for a young starting comedian because you can go and you do one performance for a bunch of representatives from a number of different colleges in a certain region. And then those colleges will book you to come and perform on their campus based on that performance. And if you do a great job, you could get as many as, 50, 60 bookings, each one being, somewhere in the ballpark of $1,500, $1,700. So that's a huge paycheck for someone who's very likely still just working a day job or maybe not even working that much, maybe freelancing themselves doing something or delivering sandwiches, whatever. Comedians have all kinds of different jobs. So Mandel got booked on a bunch of these NACA shows, and he wanted me to do his tour poster. So the first one I did is in the show, and it's kind of depicting him as a video game character, this kind of Mario Brothers looking character inside a barber shop, and he's cutting the hair of a young man there, and there's another barber in the foreground. And it was a really fun project, and it was done around the time that my inking skills were really starting to come into like a sharp focus. So typically when I work with my partner Chris, the way that we'll make these images is that I'll do all the initial ideation, I'll do all the sketching and roughing, I'll communicate with the client and get the kind of official composition approved, and then I'll tighten it up a bit and make sure everything's in the place that it needs to be, and I'll send it to Chris, and Chris will kind of what I would call put it on style. So like Chris has a very specific, particular style of cartooning and kind of shape language that he uses, and he'll apply that to my rough. And then when he's done, that's all done digitally. He'll send it to me, and I will print that out in blue line on a piece of Strathmore paper. And then I'll use a variety of inking tools like brushes and nibs and French curves and rulers and toothbrushes and splatter, all kinds of different things to create all the different ink textures and cross hatching and weaving and splattering that I do. So this one was just like a real achievement for us in the work that we do together, and it kind of set a standard moving forward. So I wanted to pull it out of the past and show it to a new group of people. So that's the reason I chose that piece. And then Mandel went on to do another NACA show the next year, booked way more colleges. We did a second tour poster for him, and then the next year he booked the most ever, and he did a third tour poster. And the third one I also included in this show, and that's the one where he's kind of running through a pyramid. There's a mummy chasing him. He's holding like a treasure chest that has these clippers in it. So each piece that we did for him kind of extended this barbershop idea. The first one, he's literally in a barbershop. The second one, I think he was on the surface of Mars cutting the hair of a Martian. And then now this one, he's in a pyramid. So it's kind of almost, you know, obviously he's pulling different video game and film influences like Indiana Jones or something. But he wanted to keep this kind of black barbershop theme throughout. So what was great about being able to include the two of these is that they kind of are bookends a little bit for that technique. The first one is really one of the first pieces where I solidified some of the inking techniques that I'd been doing at that time, and was pushing my compositions to be more dynamic, more filmic. And the third one that's in the pyramid, I think really elevated the piece to a new and exciting place, both texturally and technically, and then also just dynamically, spatially. I think that the difference in time was almost 2 years between the two pieces, and so it was really exciting to just see that personal growth. And a lot of times, I mean, we can as artists see growth in our work, but it's easier to see specific growth if you're working on something that's the same. You know, if you painted a portrait of someone 2 years ago and then you paint them again, you can really see your own growth in that particular subject matter. And I think that that's what's interesting about sharing those two pieces. The other two pieces that I put in the show are disparate. They're just kind of their own pieces, one of which was from 2020, is just from last year. It was a poster that Chris and I designed for the Etowah Film Festival. It's the second year that they did that film festival, and we had done the poster the first year. And so this year we were really excited. We had spoken with the client about how we could evolve some of the visual themes and keep certain things similar. So the first year featured the Etowah River. This year features the river also. But we had talked about the design challenge of putting this big river boat and having it look like this kind of fancy party. And, you know, this is really a small financial opportunity compared to the amount of work and energy that goes into it. But again, I love to look at pieces like this and really take pride in doing just a hefty amount of heavy lifting, even when the payout isn't that much. And what was a giant shame about this piece was that due to COVID, that film festival was, at first it was postponed, then it was postponed again, and then ultimately it just became an online streaming festival, which is great. I'm glad that they were able to do what they did, but I don't think a lot of people ended up seeing this poster. So here it is, for the first time for almost anyone who's going to see it, a poster that I'm really proud of. And in addition to the riverboat, I think the tree on the left side of the composition that has like a little kind of Alice in Wonderland type figure reading a book at the base of it is it's just a nice detail. I'm proud of some of the brushwork that is done in the tree. That was another kind of rendering opportunity that I'd done a couple other pieces that had some trees in them, and they had started to step in this direction, but this one I think really firmly takes the brushwork to a place that I was really excited about. The last piece that's in the show is for a comedy show in Los Angeles from a couple years ago called Cover Band. I think this is from 2019. And a friend of mine who I'm now collaborating with on a webcomic, Madi Litwack, he had moved to LA from New York, and him and two other comics, Jamel Johnson and Randy Syfax, were going to create this new show at a great like rock venue that was there in LA, and they wanted to recreate this like Beatles Abbey Road kind of a feel for their album cover and or their tour poster, sorry. And so, or God, it's a show poster. I can't keep these things straight. And that was just a really fun piece to work on. It was the first time I'd ever drawn a palm tree. I like the challenge of a recreation or an interpretation of something that's like really iconic, because I think that you sort of as a designer have a couple choices that you can make in those circumstances. One is that you just stick really closely to the material. The other one is that you really go far away from it and do something radically different. And in this one, I like the idea of just kind of doing it pretty close to what it was. So I matched even some of the clothing that the Beatles wore on that album. We put a cat that was Randy's cat at the front of the pack, and it was just a fun piece to do. So anyhow, gosh, I think I've gone over my time here by a couple minutes. I hope that's okay. But that's what I have to say about all these pieces. I love doing them, and I'm glad that you guys get to see them, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it a little bit. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Thomas, and I'm talking now with Jonathan Fisher, Professor of Art in the School of Art and Design at Kennesaw State University. We are very lucky to have Jonathan's work Halcyon in our exhibition on display now in the Zuckerman Museum of Art, and he's going to talk with us about his work and how he gets started with things, how his creative process flows. So thanks, Jonathan, for coming and talking with me today. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Great to be here.
So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you come from?
Okay. I'm originally from Western North Carolina, a city called Hickory, North Carolina. And I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts with the concentration in printmaking from the University of North Carolina at Asheville. And then went on to get my MFA also in art with a concentration in printmaking from Ohio State.
In Columbus?
In Columbus, yeah. And I've been in the Atlanta area now for 16 years.
And you've been at KSU for about 5 years, right?
Yes, this is my 5th year.
That's awesome. So what do you teach here at KSU?
I teach courses in the foundation core. I also coordinate that area. And the foundation core tends to be the classes that students take in their first year: basic drawing, basic design, basic color. I teach any of those courses, but the two that I enjoy the most, one is the two-dimensional design and color theory class, and then also our concepts, creativity, and studio practice class.
I hear a lot of good things about that creativity class. And you yourself have moved from being more of a printmaker, I understand, to being more of a painter.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you begin in artwork.
Sure. Well, interestingly enough, one of the reasons that I enjoyed printmaking so much wasn't so much the control that someone can have over the process. It was actually the opposite of it. It was a little bit of that element of chance, or a little bit of the what if that goes into that. And as the years have gone on, these days I'm mainly doing abstract paintings, but I still enjoy that particular aspect. And so when I begin a work, it's usually almost like a type of play with the material, and moving the paint around on a surface, letting it dry to a certain degree, playing with the viscosity of the paint at different stages. And then normally as I am engaging more with that work, organically, I feel like a composition comes together, and then I become more deliberate as I move on with the process. It starts out that it's very, very open, and it is. It's a lot of fun with moving paint around, and then as I begin to get compositions, when the composition takes form, then I begin to think of how I can now create some sort of a visual system in this, some sort of visual system. And right now I tend to really be drawn to things like circles and clusters, thinking about in biology, little microbes. On a larger level, the solar system maps the way our the geography looks. I usually begin to want to have some kind of a system emerge through the time that I'm working on the piece, and then eventually it's where it needs to be, and then I stop.
So you reach a natural point of conclusion and just know that the work is done.
Yes, I don't think I ever completely in my mind know how it's going to look when I start. There's almost a bit of a journey that I enjoy. In the beginning, there's almost like a lack of clarity and a lack of control, and enjoying where these fun chance encounters that I'm creating with the paint and with the color and with the materials, where it leads me. And then, like I said, the more I go into it, then I begin to find a more deliberate path for its completion.
So what are some of these materials that you're using?
I really like acrylic paint, and I love acrylic modeling paste. I like the chunkiness of it. I like texture. I like to explore the mixing of the acrylic paint with the modeling paste. And, in one painting, have some very thick, almost kind of luscious paint, also with paint that's almost been reduced to water. And the interplay of that together, the selective mixing of it, some blending, other time letting the water stand and see kind of what it does to the paint that's already on the surface.
So do you believe in taking risks with your work? Sounds like you're very open to following where it leads.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that maybe is one of the more prominent aspects of my work, is this notion of risk, or allowing for a chance to the enjoyment of that, the enjoyment of the journey of there being a little bit of chance, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So the piece in the show that we have called Halcyon, an acrylic painting on printmaking paper, it does have a very watery, reminiscent feel to it based on the colors and, as you talked about, the texture and the viscosity and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that particular piece.
Sure. That piece was created during a quite kind of extraordinary time. I completed it in early May of 2020, and during the month of 2020, April of 2020, when I was working on it, tended to be one of the most locked down months of my entire life. We were into the first month of the pandemic. We didn't know much about it. I was kind of freaked out and didn't really go anywhere. And with the term Halcyon, I found myself very comforted by memories of things that brought me a lot of happiness as a means to feel comfort and secure. Anyone that knows me knows I love water. I spend all summer usually in a lake somewhere. And I had this attachment to water. And as I was working on that piece, the feeling, the longing of the past and the enjoyment of being in nature and in the water, that really came through. It was almost like I was creating what I wanted, where I really wanted to be, instead of kind of locked in my, my condo by myself.
Where you were trapped.
I was trapped and was really wanting to be more out with nature and not stuck. It was a direct reaction to the kind of claustrophobia and fear and dread of the present and dread of the future, as opposed to the comfort and happiness of the past during that time.
Would you say that that's pretty typical of your artwork, that you respond to the current moment?
Yes, even though I don't know if I'm always as aware of it as I was with Halcyon. I mean, I think that one was created with a very clear idea of what that moment was. I don't know that I'm always as clear of the moment until it's finished, and normally it shows up. There's a reminder usually that there was something. It was marking a particular moment or time. I don't know, again, that I'm always as fully engaged with that notion with every piece as I was with the one that's in the show.
Well, we are very pleased to have it on the walls of the Zuckerman right now, and I hope that lots of people will come out and see it. Thank you so much for giving your time today so that people can have another understanding of who you are as an artist and what you bring to not only the show, but our school. So thank you very much, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.